welcome to Roundtable. Well, today we're going to be discussing the role of the government and also the role of the opposition on handling the two recent crises that we've been facing. One, of course, has been lockdown. How has the government handled it? I can totally say that we've emerged from lockdown, but in a COVID continuous world. How is the government handling the situation? Did the opposition play the right role during the lockdown? Because there were a lot of faux but what did the opposition do? Did they make the right moves? Second question, of course, is on China. We've seen the Chinese. Now, of course, we are told the Chinese have withdrawn. There's comparisons to 62. Have they actually withdrawn? All kinds of questions are being raised. And of course, has it all been grandstanding by the Prime Minister? Has something actually happened? What has been the fallout of the China episode is also something I want to discuss today. So joining me on the panel is Rajiv Pratap Brudi, National Spokesperson BJP. We have Sanjay Jha, Congress leader. Pawan Verma, he's an author and also politician and commentator at large. He's going to tell us where he's headed, but not yet. He hasn't revealed his cards. And Kalikesh Singhdeo, he's also the spokesperson from the BJD. Rudy, begin with you. We've seen let's talk about China first, since that's top of mind. Handling of China, you've made a lot of comparisons have been made with 62. In what way have, Prime Minister Modi's actions do you feel when the Congress raises the charge that don't be lulled by them and they compare you with what they have done? How would you react to that?
Well, I really do not know what is the Congress on the subject, but except for being in opposition and playing the role of an opposition for the sake of being an opposition. And from day one, the leadership, when it started, when they said that the Indian government sent the forces without the arms and they fought, and then making many more statements, which was followed by a repetitive conversation on the television by many of the spokespersons. Then facts and whatever the government said, they chose to say they are liars. And the Prime Minister is a liar, the Defence Minister is a liar, the External Affairs Minister is a liar, and they knew more about what was happening on the border. Some generals who were speaking, they were not speaking correct, and they were the experts on the subject. Not talking historically, but individually, they said that they knew that the army had come in, the Chinese army had come in, and so forth. Even the leader went to them saying Surrender Modi or something like that. And then he challenged this Prime Minister's statement saying not an inch is lost. I do not know what whether the Prime Minister said not an inch is lost. They said the post has been captured. So they are more about China, and people like us always mentioned, we appreciate the Congress people that they know more about China, because first time in Indian history, I believe, there could be occasions, I do not recall, when a political party which has a government in India called the Congress Party, and it goes to China before the Olympics in 2008, and they sign an agreement with the Chinese political Communist Party of China, which I really do not know what was the intent of that agreement, but there must be something beyond, because that was presumed that the Congress had a relationship with China in perpetuity.
I think where the Congress went wrong was right in the beginning, even as events were unfolding. The aim seems to have been that our principal enemy is the BJP and not China. And I think that does not resonate well with the people of the country. You have to first say, we have a problem. And I can tell you, no government can say that it is solely responsible for the fact that China is today in a better position, perhaps, on the border to salami slice pieces of the 4,000-kilometer long LAC. Both governments have neglected defense preparedness, and proportionately, I must say, since Congress has been in power for 5 decades, it must take the blame. I mean, I have written publicly that in the years of the UPA government, we had A.K. Antony ji as Raksha Mantri, whose track record must be one of the worst among all Raksha Mantris in our country. Just proposals just did not get approval. It was called the honesty paralysis. That if you were to award a contract to party one and the party that lost out sent you on a plain piece of paper a complaint, you stop the entire business. Now, the truth is that India is in one of the most troubled regions of the world. And we need to understand that while Pakistan is a minor nuisance on the western side, our principal adversity is an expansionist, imperialist, ambitious power, which is called China. And we have to face up to it. I've said publicly, Priya, this tweet of Rahul Gandhi, Narendra surrender, marks the lowest level of discourse between opposition and government.
Let me bring Sanjay on this, which in fact...
That's not good enough.
Yeah. Well, Pawan, you always confuse us. When you were in the NDA, you were criticizing the BJP. Now that you're outside the NDA...
I try to be objective.
Okay. Sanjay, another one who's confusing me, but today I think you're, as I was telling someone, you're with the Congress, but not quite with the Congress. So defend this tweet of Rahul Gandhi's if you can, explain that to us, please. Sanjay.
Priya, I'm definitely with the Congress. I don't know whether the Congress is with me. So just the first clarification. The second point is that I do believe, Priya, that national security, foreign policy, protecting India's consecrated territorial boundaries is not the prerogative of any political party or a government. I mean, we are all stakeholders, including you and me. I mean, citizens of the country are concerned what's happening at India's national borders. So for the Congress party to question Mr. Modi personally, or for that matter, the government's opacity or its completely non-transparent way of communication, I think was extremely legitimate. I do not agree with my friend Rajiv because, he makes it appear as if, the Congress party is soft on China. I mean, this is the political debate that I think, Priya, needs to change in our country. I mean, when Mr. Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he made very outrageous, downright obtuse remarks against the UPA government on China handling or troubles with Pakistan. You will remember that when the terror attack happened in Mumbai on 26/11, Mr. Modi was outside the Oberoi Trident Hotel giving a press conference. I mean, that I thought was a brazen contravention of proper political protocol. So I don't want to go down that road. I don't think the BJP is ever anti-India or pro-Pakistan or pro-China, and neither is the Congress. I think we should get out of this puerile pedestrian debate.
Very well said.
Yeah, I think the fundamental point is that China today is a hegemonic, expansionary bully. And don't just look at India, Priya. They're doing the same to Japan, where they have territorial conflicts. And with every country where there is even a potential boundary dispute, and it's not just the South China Sea, it's also Vietnam, where they have been sinking boats, Indonesia, Malaysia. So you have a country whose reputation has been brutally annihilated after the coronavirus export, which I think is the biggest export China has ever done. And I think the world today is suspicious of China. So in a great number of ways, when China, in a very aggressive outburst against India, went into our part of the LAC, and I do believe a lot of military generals, I do believe the Indian ambassador to China who said the same thing, that the Chinese presence was in the Indian part of the line of actual control. The fact remains that we need to recognize that we are up against a very dangerous, unpredictable military aggressor, and we need to respond with a mature political consensus. My last point here will be, because we need to carry on with the debate, is the fact that it is important that we recognize that your enemy is capable of probably being treacherous even as we talk. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru as a prime minister was betrayed by the then Chinese premier, and I do believe Mr. Modi's faith in President Xi Jinping was equally misplaced. So in politics, leadership takes a call, it doesn't work, but please, for God's sake, let's not reduce this extremely sensitive debate to being anti-national, etc. These issues of donations to RGF can be counter-attacked by saying what has come from the Chinese in the PM CARES Fund, which I think is frankly a bigger explosive issue. But I don't want to get down the debate, Priya. I think we need to elevate our discussion here.
Let's not get into that, because also, but I did notice that the surrender Modi tweet has not been, you just sidestepped that one. Let me
answer that. Since you brought it up and I take the bull by the horns, I will answer you. I do not believe that we should ever make personal ad hominem attacks. I repeat what I said earlier. no political leader, a prime minister will ever allow an inch of his territory to be ever given to any opposition government with whom we have a problem. You can make an error of judgment, but to say surrender, I think is frankly brazenly unfair.
Okay, well said. Kalikesh, you heard everybody, and I think BJD is like Pawan right now. You're being objective. So your take on the conversation that has gone around on the China issue.
Look, Pawan has been right when he said that the lowest point of Indian politics has come out by the manner in which we've internalized our political positions on external aggressions. And this is not the first time it's happened. I mean, it's happened, of course, in the China's case with the Congress coming up with some comments. It's also happened with the BJP keeping the Congress out of conversations or not giving them the due position of being the largest opposition party. I think, in times like this, the leadership of the ruling party needs to reach out to others. And specifically Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, I think she should have been reached out to in a manner which behoves her position in democracy today. But having said that, personal comments which undermine India's position when they are talking to China, when they are positioning themselves against China, I think that's something which is completely which should be counterintuitive. I mean, it does no good to India if the opposition parties start publicly questioning the government's actions or government statements or government's claims in the middle of the entire conflict. At least wait till the conflict is over. Wait till Parliament starts, when you can legitimately ask these questions of the government, and the government should be duty-bound to tell you. You shouldn't be needing to ask them. The fault lies with both. I think what's happened in the past, and specifically with since Balakot and the Pakistan aggression there, I think external enemies are now being used for domestic political gains. And once that starts happening, there's no stopping that. The problem is that we as a mature democracy have not been are unable to sort of hold maturity in our democratic interactions, and that's quite sad. I think China is an issue. China will continue to remain an issue. We have to live with them. I mean, they are our neighbors. We have a border conflict with them. We have to deal with them on multi levels. I don't think there is a single manner in which we can or will be able to deal with China, given its economic position, given its geographical position vis-a-vis us, and given the fact that we are between China and Pakistan. I think these are serious issues. And the government, and besides the political formation of the government in the center, I think the teams which handle these situations are fairly competent. They are professionalized IFS officers. Pawan was one of them, not too long ago. There are some seriously good people who can handle the situation. We need to allow them to handle the situation and not make this a political sounding board.
I think we kind of agree on that one. So, Rudy, I noticed you've changed your backdrop. First, we were hitting the wall. Now you're going to lead us up the garden path. But can you hear me, Rudy? Yeah, he can.
Yes, I'm hearing.
He's gone to Zen like
gone are the days when
react.
Gone are the days when he would promptly react. Now I love hearing and watching you. So that's different.
Okay, I will not provoke you. But let's move on to the handling of the lockdown. There's been since I think now at least.
So before we conclude, I'm happy that after a long time agreeing, disagreeing, we are all on the same page. And plus, I wish, but my only fear is what Sanjay has said. I heard after Mr. Rahul Gandhi's one of the statements, one of the spokesperson was sacked. So I want a saner people to be there in the system. So these are very sad that he does not agree to. So I am very scared that we lose one more sensible people on the screen. So please, I say you be in politics and you should be there. So be careful next time when we say this. That's all. Carry on.
That is true. Appearing on the show is injurious to your political career, Sanjay. But Rudy, on the lockdown issue, handling the criticisms that, how do you feel? Was there, did we lock down too early and open up too fast? The migrants issue?
No. If anyone, whatever we are talking is retrospectively, and I would have been happy, very happy, if someone would have come on the first day, which was 22nd of March, when a single day closure took place, and then 23rd, there was some announcement, Parliament got closed. 24th night, 25th morning, shutdown took place. If someone on the 26th or the 27th would have come and asked me this question or told the world that the step which is being taken is wrong, I would have thought that what we are discussing today is much better. Now, the wisdom of the government is is not there, and whatever is available with the government at a given point of time to take a call is what the government is expected to do. Experiences, and you see after this, the SARS thing which happened in 2003, this is something which hit the nation, and it hit the nation unprepared, because no one was preparing for SARS, as no one indications, and people do claim that there were indications, but nonetheless it was going to be so harsh was never decided. Lockdowns 1, 2, 3 and 4 and unlocking process, and you have the states in between. And the first time when the extension was being discussed, there were chief ministers who said that we can take care of the economy later, let's save lives, and the central government with all its authority under NDMA Act kept on pushing it. Now there are many questions should be asked, and with all the capacity which has been built up to fight COVID. And you see, in a country like India, about a crore of people, 95 death, coma and other things. We add another 50,000 to that. That is what we discuss now and decide. But at that point of time, and even today, Patna, which is a capital and where I have to reach to travel to my constituency, has been, at this point of time, Patna as a state capital is under a lockdown from today to the 16th. So could I challenge the decision? This was not taken by the central government or Mr. Modi. This was taken by the chief minister of Bihar. Now, can you challenge that decision and say that this 6 days or 60 days which is going to come forth is right or wrong? I don't think anyone has the answer to this.
Rudy, we have 3 people from Bihar on this show, actually. Very interesting. So how will this impact Bihar election? I think I should maybe twist this question a bit.
From a day when I started my politics using Petromax and village loudspeaker and an amplifier, today we have migrated to virtual rallies. So there is a difference. So politics is there. Election would be held. Election possibly would be held in time unless something very extraordinary happens. And of course, the political statement, we are going to form a government again.
Okay. Pawan, they're looking at lockdown with a specific look at Bihar. Has, the handling by Nitish Kumar, do you think is going to rebound on him? Because he hasn't really handled the migrant situation well, but neither has Tejasvi Yadav really. So, if we can make it a bit towards the Bihar elections, because that's the next big political challenge also. Pawan.
First, just some points. Do you want me to comment on the handling of Corona and then I link it to Bihar?
Okay.
You see, I'll tell you, hindsight is always 20/20. And if you were to ask me today or then, and I was not asked, a lockdown of that severity and duration in a country like ours is ipso facto problematic. The reason is very simple, because of the institutional inequities in the system. Delhi is officially, as per an affidavit given to the Supreme Court, 49% a slum. The census of 2011 defined the slum as a place which is unfit for human habitation. Now, to have a lockdown in such a situation, where 49% of the capital is a slum, where people live cheek by jowl, several people in one room, inadequate sanitary facilities, etc. And the same applies to metropolises like Mumbai. I mean, you have Dharavi and so many other slums. So it was a problematic. But let me say, when the Prime Minister announced it, no one from the opposition questioned the move. In fact, while the lockdown unfolded, and then we had what I call the invisible people suddenly swarming out of their underground holes and becoming the river, the army of migrant laborers moving back. At that time, these invisible people should have been anticipated, probably planned for better between central and state governments. But again, can you imagine the difference, Priya? Imagine if the BJP was in opposition and there were millions of migrant workers without food, water, thirsty, no means of transport, walking along the roads and highways and rail tracks. They would have been out on the field, either providing them succor or making political messaging out of the plight of millions of those who form the underbelly of our economy and society. The Congress did not do anything.
Yes.
There was one photo op of Rahul Gandhi ji with some distance talking to a group of people. In all his press conferences held during that time, he was not, probably rightly, combative. In fact, he says, we are not questioning, we are only pointing. You took a soft stance. Your own chief ministers fully supported the lockdown, Congress chief minister. In fact, they extended it. So now to use hindsight to say the government's decision was wrong, I believe, is not only inaccurate, it's unethical.
Okay.
And as far as Bihar is concerned, I'd like to ask my friend Rajiv ji, इलेक्शंस हो पाएंगे ऐसे माहौल में, क्योंकि आप कह रहे हैं अभी लॉकडाउन 16 दिन का होने जा रहा है, उसके बाद हालात में, बिकॉज यू नो बिहार इज अ वेरी specific state in the sense that for all its wealth, both of knowledge and of potentially of the economy, it is currently, unfortunately, the poorest states, one of the poorest states in the country.
Okay.
And with a huge density. And if corona, and I hope it will not, spreads in any manner, it will create a gargantuan crisis for the government. So I don't know whether elections in such situation, notwithstanding virtual rallies, can happen in a credible manner. It's a question that I want to ask, whether it's possible at all.
Okay, I'm going to, Sanjay, your reaction on the, questions have been raised that the opposition didn't really, also behave properly during the lockdown. There's a lot more that you could have done.
Well, Priya, first I would like to tell my friend Rajiv, I was very touched by his concern for me. But the good news is I can't be sacked twice. So, I'm pretty much on a good wicket on your program. The second point is that as far as both, the problem with China and the COVID handling situation is concerned, my only objection to the way the government has conducted itself is this premature triumphalism. I'll give you an example. I mean, where China is concerned, when Mr. Modi, for instance, came and claimed after an all-party meet that not an inch has been conceded and, no Chinese have entered our territory, Mr. Modi became the favorite primetime character that the Chinese loved. So Rajiv cannot ignore that. You see, the problem with the BJP is that it's not just military standoff, everything becomes about political posturing to win domestic votes. I think that is extremely crude and a primitive political style that needs to now go out of fashion. COVID, it's the same problem. I agree with Pawan that end of day, this is an unprecedented health crisis. No government in the world could have been prepared. No citizen of the world was ready for something as dangerous, contagious as it has turned out to be. Now, the bottom line is, you go back to Mr. Modi's second or third lockdown speech. He almost, Priya, took credit to say that India is better off. We have done what the Western world has not been able to do. You know what you do? You lull people into complacency. And you tend to kind of actually, create a sanguine air or atmosphere that is on very fragile foundations. Today, I agree again with Rajiv that nobody could have known as to what is going to be the trade-off between lockdown and lives. I agree. But don't forget that the government cannot airbrush the reality that the Indian economy had already tanked pre-pandemic. If today you're going to be at a negative GDP growth rate, you cannot blame anybody other than the government. My Pablo is very keen to participate on this show. Now, the point I wish to make, Priya, Pablo, by the way, is very pro-Congress. I just need to say that. Now,
I think he should be hired by the Congress as spokesperson.
Before I'm accused of, another orchestrated plant out here. So my last line, because I think I'll mute immediately, is the fact that where the pandemic is concerned, I think, it's good to be a little paranoid and circumspect. Don't jump the gun. Today we are crossing 7 lakhs. Our public health infrastructure is never been robust. I'm not blaming the BJP for that. That is a historical baggage, and partly we have to be taking responsibility as well. But I do believe that the government was not able to balance the two well enough. It could have done a better job. And as Pawan rightly mentioned, why did Mr. Modi, such an astute politician who knows the pulse of the people, did he forget that there were roughly, by their own government estimates, 85 million migrants in India who would be devastated when you give them just a 4-hour lockdown notice? And, where would they go? And I think that humanitarian crisis was self-made. And for that, Mr. Rudy's government will have to take full responsibility.
Okay, Kalikesh, last word to you. Though I don't know, I think Prime Minister was perhaps hoping that the employers would also do their bit, but that didn't happen. Kalikesh?
Look, I completely blame the government for the absolute failure of the manner in which the lockdown was implemented and the consequences of that. And I'm not just talking about the central government. I'm talking about every state government in India. Let's face facts. Mr. Modi announced a one-day lockdown. Most states made it into a 2-week lockdown, and then it never stopped. How could you miss people who work on daily wages? Yeah. 80% of India is employed by MSMEs and agriculture sectors as laborers. It's the first thing we learn in economics when we go to class 7. And you're talking about a government which implemented this across the state in the most severe fashion, making it almost a police rule, which still extends to a large part of the country even now. From day one, I had more than 10,000 to 12,000 migrants across the country reach out to me for rations, for coming back to India. They were getting scared. And the problem is that when the government decided to take this action, there was no data to back up such a severe action. Normally, like most countries did, they monitored, they tested, they made social movements more difficult, and gave time for the lockdown to happen so that once lockdown happens, people are adequately prepared. None of this. Even now, today, when they are doing lockdowns in various parts, in various mohallas, suddenly you find a mohalla lockdown because there are 20 cases which come out of there. There is no food to eat. The shops are shut. Nobody's allowed to go in. People with money are starving. Even today, it is being poorly handled and badly handled. Forget about the economic consequences. That's something which the government maybe is willing to live with and look at. And maybe given time, that will come out. I mean, people will come out of it over time. But the businesses which have been destroyed, you're talking about the businessmen doing their bit. But I'm talking about 60% to 70% of MSMEs which are destroyed. And I don't think this whole credit loan facility which has been organized or which is being promoted by the government of India is going to have any impact because the banks are not lending. The government can say whatever they want. So the manner in which the lockdown has happened, the migrant labor, they're not invisible. I mean, we are all, each one of us is associated with labor in one way or the other. They're not invisible. The migrant labor were completely left on their own. Governments did not start trains for almost a month or 45 days. What for? If you are locking them down without food, without water, without safety and social security, at least put them on a bus or train at their expense and allow them to go back home. Even that was not allowed. And what is the result of all this? We are one of the few countries where after 3 months of severe lockdown, the cases are doubling very, very quickly. Every other country, the rate of growth has slowed down. Most of the other countries. We are one of the few where the cases are going so high, and I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Unfortunately, and I'm glad the economy is opened up, but unfortunately, we still don't have a grip of the situation.
On that really somber note, I think I'm totally out of time. So yes, there have been serious problems in the handling of the lockdown, but as Rudy said, is it the benefit of hindsight? And as we've all agreed, it's not just the central government, but even state governments that should be also held responsible. But on that note, thank you all of you for joining me on this show, and hope to see all of you soon, maybe on an actual roundtable. Hopefully that should happen soon. That's my light at the end of the tunnel, at least. Thank you all of you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.